Hello, my fellow Hallowed Hunters, this is the Souls Fanatic, and today I will show you how to make the Transient Curse from Dark Souls. Before we begin, a list of tools and materials is in the video's description below, as well as time skips to each step. Any templates seen in my videos will be available on my Patreon alongside a few other extraneous perks. Warning! This project uses the stove, boiling water, and the sticking of the hands into hot wax. These can be very dangerous. Please take the proper precautions before using these tools and materials. Again, this is very dangerous. Do not replicate this project if you do not know how to use these materials. I am not responsible for your actions. Do the proper research before proceeding with this project. But with that said, let's get started. For part 1, we'll be melting and coloring the wax in this bucket. You will need a large bag of paraffin wax beads, a metal bucket or any other metal container you're not afraid to throw away, green candle wax dye, an oven mitt, and a stirring stick. You also need a stove or open flame with a large pot filled with water. We'll start by turning on the stove burner to a medium flame. We'll place the pot of water over the burner and wait for the water to reach a steady boiling point. We'll then pour our paraffin wax beads into the bucket. It is very important that we use paraffin wax, as the wax is soft enough to have a low melting point so we don't burn our hands, yet strong enough to hold its shape. We'll place the bucket into the boiling water and wait for the wax to melt. Now, because of science and density and buoyancy and all that, you may notice that your bucket or pot of wax will float on the boiling water. You will need to constantly hold up your bucket so it doesn't spill out. You must wear an oven mitt to avoid burning your hand, and you may also want to stir the wax with the stirring stick so the wax doesn't burn at the bottom. Once our wax has begun to melt, we will take a tiny sliver of the green wax dye and mix it in with our wax. These dyes can be extremely strong, so make sure you only add a small bit at a time until you get that nice ghostly green. With that done, you'll remove the bucket from the burner, and we can move on to the next part. For part 2, we will be sticking our hands in the hot wax. You will need a bath of ice water, some liquid soap, and your melted wax. You also need a pair of sacrificial hands, so I will be taking off the gloves for this part. Before we start, you must test the wax's temperature. Warning! Again, this can be dangerous. Paraffin wax has a melting point of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Human skin has a burning point of about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You have a very small window of success. We'll start by dipping our hands into the cold water and lathering our hands with soap. It is very important to leave a layer of soap on your hands so the wax slides off easy. Then we will put our hands into whatever posture you want and then dip it into the wax. The Transient Curse looks like a pair of hands grasping something in prayer, so I tried to replicate that as close as possible. You want to dip your hands in and pull them out with a layer of wax covering your hands. If at any point in time you feel pain or burning, immediately pull them out and stick them into the ice water. That would mean that the wax is too hot and you're going to have to cool down the wax before trying again. Once you pull your hands out, stick them into the cold water. Then without moving your hands, dip them back into the hot wax. Then back into the water. Then one last time into the wax. And a final dip back into the water. I recommend doing 3 dips, as 3 layers is strong enough to hold its shape while retaining the detail from your hands. Now here comes the hardest part, where we have to pull out our hands from the wax. My strategy was to slowly and carefully shift my hands back and forth, trying to stretch the wax just a tiny bit so my fingers can slide out. The soap definitely helps, but I guarantee that you will break a few casts before you get one right. I personally had to do this 4 times before getting one that didn't break. If it does break, no worries, you can melt it down and try again. I would also recommend that you shave your hands because the wax will pull out your hair and it does hurt. Once you have removed the shell from your hands, you will want to dip the hands into the wax and water a couple times to thicken and strengthen the base so that they can stand. I also recommend that you rinse out the inside with the cold water to get any of the soap out. But with all that done, we have our Transient Curse. This project was fairly easy to do, however, it can be a little pricey for what you get out of it. I used most of the wax from that big bag and ended up with only 1 cast, and a whole lot of extra. I'm going to save my extra wax for when I might need it in the future, but if you're worried about wasting materials or don't want a bucket full of wax hanging around, I don't recommend this one. As for the final product, it's not bad, but I feel I could have done a better job. The bucket I was using was very small, and I could not fit my entire hand in it. So if I were to try this again, I would say to use a larger, longer bucket and maybe a lot more wax. Personally, I like that it's an open shell. It adds to the ghostly nature of the object, how the light faintly glows in it, but I can tell you that it is very fragile. I have seen people fill them with wax dust to help keep them solid, so maybe something to look into, but just my preference not to. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more things like this in the future. And I hope to see you all next time.